The bounty hunters. The door opens nearly silently, and the black and chrome form of Litha slithers in. She offers a smile and wave to Herika before hurriedly moving towards Pukey and Cindy and sweeping them both up closely. A tiny sensor drone breaks off from her and lands on the edge of the stroller to observe the baby Orhanas, and she smiles. Can they stay for the interview? They can. They can even contribute. So long as you're doing most of the talking, it's no issue. Herika answers. Excellent. Now for the record, Litha says as she puts down Pukey and Cindy and coils her tail around them protectively. It's Mrs. Powercoil. My apologies. I had noticed that while Cindy shares his last name, you do not. Is this cultural friction? Yes, my birth family follows a matriarchal naming tradition, whereas both Cindy and Gregory have a patriarchal naming tradition. My daughters will be Schmidt Powercoils, and my sons Powercoil Schmidts. I see, I'll just note that down here. Oh, before we continue, that reminds me, what's Schmidt actually mean? It's been a point of curiosity. Smith or blacksmith. A lot of human last names are vocational in nature, and there's just the habit of not translating them or shortening them, or in this case both. I see, am I to assume that its language is your primary one? No, my ancestors moved around a lot. There is a region on Earth with many, many porous borders and nations with distinct languages, cultures, and more, but in very close proximity. Some generations ago, my family crossed this region, then an ocean for good measure to end up practically on the other side of the world. So you don't speak the language of your ancestors despite carrying the name? I know a bit. Bike, our German crew member and communications officer, is teaching me some, Pukey says, and Herika makes a quick note. I see now, Mrs. Powercoil. How did you encounter this crew? The daughter of a gear is not the kind of woman to just run off with a crew of bounty hunters and mercenaries on a whim, Herika says, and Litha nods. Not usually, no, but when you see so much potential, so much that is beautiful in both the sense of scripture and practical instinct, Litha trails off as she considers her words, then smiles. By which I mean only one of us in this room would find a sunrise or sunset to be anything other than beautiful. And that's our adorable, unnamed daughter here. Orhanas are quite sensitive to light after all. But there are things in the galaxy that are well and truly beautiful with very, very few finding cause to argue against it. And seeing a loving family that has clearly come together by choice and chance to make something more, that is beautiful. Is it now? Herika asks. Yes, it is. Not only is a loving family a beautiful thing on its own, but the synthetic ascendancy teaches us that we can take the rude, rough materials of the galaxy and refine them, and then use them to refine ourselves, growing stronger as we grow in knowledge, but that this growth must be tempered with compassion and wisdom. And that is what I saw, a young healer, a specialist in prosthetics, with a man of strong bearing and steely gaze, clearly recovered from the battlefield with a truly elegant set of prosthetics, and a young man who had clearly been through horror, but was healing through the use of both compassion and refinement, beautiful in their care for each other and beautiful in the eyes of the Ascendency. For they took 3 souls that were injured in different ways and refined themselves into a happy, loving family. We're a bit more than 3 now, Litha, Pukey says, reaching up to caress her cheek with his prosthetic arm, and she nuzzles down onto him. Indeed, 4 in this room alone, 5 for those who are, 8 for those yet to be, Litha says. Wait, 8? Oh my goodness, have you? Cindy exclaims as she stands up excitedly. The egg is starting to form, but it will be a little while yet before it can be seen without specialized equipment. Litha confirms, and Cindy lets out a giddy squeal before hugging her. Pukey just looks smug at the revelation. The celebration is broken off as the squeal has woken up the infant, and Cindy quickly rushes to comfort the little girl with Pukey rising up to help. In short order, the fussy baby is out of her stroller and being gently bounced by Pukey as Cindy adjusts her swaddlings to ensure they're perfectly comfortable. Herika merely smiles at the sight before turning back to Litha. Shall we continue? Can you tell me about the place you met them at? The religious section of Octaran Spin, an entire district reserved for those of a more spiritual bent in the midst of a rather crime-laden station. Crime-laden? We were there after bounties, people that jumped borders. But the local law stated that whoever started a fight was at fault, so we lured a lot of our targets into trying something. Pukey explained softly. It's not quite law. There were unwritten rules, but the only thing that came close to an actual law was to not provoke the command crew and station owner. They controlled the airlocks you see, and they made use of it. Letha explains. A criminal station? Not quite. The station itself wasn't committing crimes, but it was outside of any legal jurisdiction and catered to many people on the wrong side of the law. I can understand bounty hunters going to such a place, but why were you there? One does not help people by never going to where there is need. You can preach, lead, and exalt the faith all day and every day, but you only preach to those who already agree, then you are simply polishing a well-made machine. If you want to build more, then you need to go out and get the materials and indeed risk some lubricant spilling. Building with the raw metal and clay of a person can be messy work, but it can be very rewarding. I hadn't thought of it like that before. Consider it like your job then. You are sent out to make sure families are treating their children, their most precious members, as they should, which is with lots of love, care, and a little bit of discipline so they can learn more. How often do you get a request to head out with the explanation being that nothing is wrong, but please go anyways? Never. Precisely, which is why there is an entire district's worth of temples, churches, and those attracted to such on a criminal station. Indeed, you can often find some of the most pious souls in places where the laws of the land are not there to protect them. They will often look to higher powers or greater ideals to see themselves through. I personally guided over a dozen women out of a life of petty crime and into a life of service and healing. When I left Octron Spin, they were mechanics, electricians, and plumbers who made a good solid living healing the homes and indeed the prosthetics or even bodies of others. That's wonderful. And was that your goal on Octron Spin? It was. Our purpose on that station was to give a way out of the darkness and into the light, to give them the chance that they themselves or others have denied them. It was slower than the tide of lost souls finding their way to the station, but we were leading them out and into better things, coupled with the other faiths such as the astral guides, the gravid mothers, and the continuity among others. And we were almost breaking even, a miracle in its own right. Then why leave such good and righteous work? Several reasons. First off, she gives a pointed look to the picture of paternal care that is Pukey, and Herika nods in understanding. Secondly, I think you'll understand when you speak with little Slytherin yourself. He's such a brave young man, and very clever too. Quite skilled with machines. I see. As much as the call to faith sang to you, the call to family was louder. It still is, Letha says with a hand over where her body is gently feeding a slowly growing new life to be. And what role do you take in his life? What do you in particular help with? Actually, I probably should have asked that earlier, but since we're all still here. Who does what for Slytherin? Letha looks to the other two, who nod at her and she nods back. I've helped him stay in touch with his Nagasha roots. Despite being born whole as a synth, I am a Nagasha. I know the old language, the old stories, and I'm making sure he does as well. I help him with his learning about machines and math, and he has the passcode to my rooms so he can come talk to me whenever he needs someone to just listen. I'll go next, Cindy offers as the little Orhanas seems to have decided that Pukey's nose is now under new management, and she's determined to have it for herself if her pulling is any indication. The silly expression on his face is merely encouraging the grabby little girl. What I bring to Slytherin's life is help and support. I was the one that made and fitted his prosthetics so he could fully see and hold things again. I've made sure that when he was depressed and struggled to find the will to eat, that he would. I've spoken to him, with him, and done everything I can to fill the gaping hole in his life since he became the last of his family. I may not know the Nagasha things that Letha can teach him, but I've slowly guided him out of his defensive posture so he can be part of the galaxy again, so he can be with people and enjoy life rather than just endure it. That's beautiful from both of you. And what does our potentially soon-to-be noseless father bring? Herika asks and teases even as Pukey lets out some false cries as the little girl yanks on his nose. There's a bit of a bend and Litha gently takes the babe from him, and he's instantly forgotten as the giant toy that plays back now has all the tiny lady's attention. Thank you, Litha. And as for the question, I have done everything I can to ensure 3 things for Slytherin above everything else, Pukey says, and Harika nods as he holds up 3 fingers. I make sure he feels safe, he feels loved, and he feels understood. In that order. When the chaining ripped everything from him, he lost more than just family and things. He lost any sense of things ever being right again. And if he was to ever get that back, he first needed to feel safe. He needed to have a place where he could let his guard down and be whoever or whatever he wanted to be. And when he did that, he needed to know for a fact that he was still loved, and more than just loved, but understood. It's not an easy thing to do, but it's important. When he has to learn how to do the things I do, I don't just tell him when he's older, and I almost never say no to him. He wants to learn how to fight? I start martial arts training for him and strength building exercises. He wants to learn how to use a weapon. The first thing I got him were games praised for their realistic weapon use, and after that, time in the firing range. Really? That's quite the list from all 3 of you. It's needed. Litha says even as the little Orhanas is tracing the hexagon pattern of her scales with her little fingers. We discussed this not long after I became part of the family. We're working to make sure his and every child on the ship expects good things to happen to them because they just so used to good things happening. We want a life of, if not happiness, then contentment to be the norm among them. Every child. From your phrasing, can I then assume that there are more people on this ship that fall into my purview? Harika asks. Well, the Sidewinders are very young, but even the youngest member is just barely at the age of majority. But there is one other, but she's in an odd position. Chronologically, she may be the oldest one on the ship, but she was placed in a healing coma without a retention ban and reverted into a teen. She's acting like a cross between a big sister and a cousin to Slytherin. They're on good terms, even if they occasionally tease or prank each other, Cindy says. And this big sister? Where's she from? Who is she? Harika asks and Pukey answers. Her proper name is Jade Pulsar Mangowa Bravo. Our pilot and his wife are her parents. But we recovered her from an illegal organ farm. She was endlessly regenerated and harvested for who knows how long. No proper records were kept, her memories are gone, and she's doing well. Picking up her father's sense of humor to add to her mother, teaching her the Canador confidence. But generally, yeah, a literally bigger sister that's on good terms with him. Well, unless you count the tail, in which case he's bigger. But they go through that argument on the regular. Is she why he hasn't undergone a healing coma to deal with the scars? There are other reasons, but it would be best if you heard them from Slytherin himself, Pukey says. Of course, you're still fairly early, so he's technically in his assigned break period of the day. Break period? Bounty hunting can be high-stress work, so everyone on the ship, soldier and civilian, have a mandated 4 hours out of every day where they are expressly forbidden from working outside of emergencies or life-and-death situations. You can nap, you can cook, snack, eat, play jokes, whatever you want except something productive, because letting out the stress is important, Pukey explains before checking his communicator. He still has an hour and a quarter left on his. Well then, in that case, how about a tour of the ship? Show me where he is and is not allowed to go.